Good afternoon, everyone. One of the things I'm going to be mentioning is higher states of consciousness, and I just wanted to explain a little bit what I mean by that. Possibly many of us have had times where we've experienced a greater sense of awareness, a sense that we are looking at more of the overview of reality, the bigger story, and we get a sense of connectedness, seeing from this higher level. It's just as you go to a high building and you look out, you can see more, you're aware of more. And then if you go up in an aircraft or out to space, you have this sense of seeing the whole, seeing more. And this has had a big effect on the astronauts that have had that experience of seeing the whole planet as one thing and getting the sense of the connectedness of all things through that. So that's what I'm referring to. What I wanted to do also is just briefly take a passage from Dr. Bruce Lipton's latest book, which is Spontaneous Evolution. And this is what he says. Society is beginning to recognise that our current collective beliefs are detrimental and that our world is in a very precarious position. So I thought it was time to bring out a message about how the new biology and other insights in the world of science can be applied to our societal beliefs and help us address the threatening situations we currently face. So I think we're all having that sense of threat and questions about the future of our world, and that's why I chose to call this the movement from impending chaos to a truly sustainable future. And I think it's really important that we don't go in denial and not want to hear about all the issues out there which seem to be insurmountable and very threatening to us. And I have a great feeling for young people today growing up into a world where they're hearing so much negativity, so much threat, so much drama about possible futures. So it's no wonder that these young people are, inclined to get into drugs, into alcohol, and with all the unfortunate outcomes that creates. So we, as the older people, have a great responsibility to find out what is the positive side of what's going on. It's mostly, it's like the iceberg. There's only the tip which is visible, but we need to dig down to see what's behind all that. And I've been involved with Robert now for more than 10 or 12 years, working with the work that he's done, because I found so much resonance between his perspective and where I was going with mine, having come from the world of science and technology and having an uneasiness from the beginning about the fact that when we design our technology and industry, we always recognise that we are creating entropy by that activity. In other words, creating a degree of chaos. And we actually measure that. Every engineer measures the amount of entropy. So, but that didn't sit well with me, that was the only thing going on. So when I got involved with Robert, or found out what Robert was doing, that was part of the connection, that he was looking at that issue of entropy and the obvious negentropy, which is not in the world of science. So my sense today is that I really wonder why there is not a nationwide conversation for deciding what we in Australia can possibly do to ameliorate what it appears as an almost inevitable global cataclysm, brought about by a combination of poverty, climate change, pollution, ecological and economic disintegration, social disorder and resource wars. These are all things that are out there which are clearly occurring and threatening, and when you look at how those impact on each other, because they're all connected, and the cascade collapse potential of that, where one triggers a further impact on one of the others, and that so forth it goes. So when you look at it from a whole system perspective, which is where I come from, it's just glaringly obvious that we are in a very dangerous situation. We need a whole new way of thinking. So the people of the world is what it comes down to, particularly those living in the developed world. We are all able, that is, able to respond. I like that word, responsibility. People say, oh, don't give me responsibility, I don't want more, I've got enough problems. And you're saying, I don't want the ability to respond. That's disempowering ourselves, and this is how our culture works. It comes up with and creates an attitude about words which gives us a kind of response which disempowers ourselves. So we are all responsible, able to respond, each and every one, to address the state of increasing disorder on this planet. It's only the people of this world that are able to respond, for if not them, who or what else can? It's up to all of us, and none of us can use the excuse that I can't act because I'm dependent on that which is contributing to the problem. And that, I think, is a big issue for a lot of people. How do I stop doing what I'm doing when I depend on it, and yet I know what I'm doing is part of the problem? I believe that the greatest available renewable resource we have is the human potential. And I contend that it is now possible to avert total disaster only by the rapid raising of human consciousness, because this is the means by which each human can reach their potential and attain their natural creative power. The crux is that without drawing upon this vast resource and the cooperation that higher states of consciousness will bring, it would not be possible to make the extensive transformation of our social and economic systems that are now required. All of us have a self-interest and the collective responsibility to provide all that each person needs to move to a higher state of consciousness, the attainment of which will not only provide each one with their greatest personal fulfilment, but will synergistically result in each one making their greatest possible contribution to the well-being of our human family and of all life. So if escape from disaster demands successful accessing of the human potential, logic demands widespread supply of that needed to enable each person to achieve a higher state of consciousness. And this begins with ensuring the physical well-being of all, along with appropriate real education. The benefits of this approach go much further than already stated, for by alleviating these essential needs and focusing on the well-being of all, the meaninglessness of the tools and infrastructure of warfare and aggression will become self-evident, thereby making available a new untapped treasury of energy and resources, both material and human. Just imagine if we could stop all the wars tomorrow, what an abundance would be immediately available to us, and what an impact that would have, a positive impact on climate change issues, and so on. But the potential of unleashing all that energy, manpower, technology that's tied up in how to decimate each other and the planet in the process could stop if we just had a higher state of awareness. These liberated resources would then provide the essentials needed for environmental regeneration, social and economic reconstruction, and the liberation and development of increasing numbers of people who will then be able to add their creative talents to providing a growing abundance to be shared for the greater good of all. This is why it's a positive loop feedback system. The more you help people, the more they can help other people, and the whole thing will build such incredible momentum. We don't see how it's possible to achieve the change needed in the time, but through this process of assisting each other to rise to a greater state of awareness where we see the connection and understand how we depend on each other, then all things are possible. Furthermore, the reallocation of industrial facilities away from the production of the tools of war to that needed for environmental health and human well-being will increasingly deny access to the tools of violence to those who would continue in the old ways of aggression against others. We stop producing in the Western world those armaments, then that will progressively make it more and more difficult for those that would not otherwise cooperate. So how is this shift to higher consciousness to take place? Clearly this will not happen everywhere or for everyone at once. Rather, it will continue to grow most readily in the developed nations due to ready access to the goods needed for people's essential material needs, and because of the growing interest and knowledge there of the science and art of consciousness transformation. As higher states of consciousness become more common, there will be growing commitment among the haves to share the availability of the essential goods and knowledge with the have-nots. It seems to me that the next evolutionary step is likely to be akin to the human race developing the group species behaviour already developed in highly successful species such as ants and bees, where common good behaviour and shared mind capability facilitates extraordinary success. The development of the internet and communication technology is already moving the performance capability of humanity towards this higher order. However, the lack of higher order thinking due to relatively low levels of consciousness is not yet producing the behaviours needed for sustainable living for the whole human family. The limiting nature of controls such as intellectual property rights and the competitive business culture where profit-making has become the only measure of business success, and the costs of social and environmental impacts are externalised and thereby disregarded, must be consigned to history. These essential changes are, however, only likely to come about when higher consciousness begins to predominate, and only then will the benefits to the whole social order of a return to ethical attitudes become apparent. Ethics has, in modern Western cultural thinking, been relegated to little more than a moral issue, unlike the ancient Greeks, who saw ethics as an essential aspect of the true nature of reality. It was from the ancient Greeks that Western culture took its original concepts of science and the democratic form of government. But we have lost our way through ignorance of the holistic nature of the Greeks' philosophical worldview. They understood that reality was an integration of both material and non-material, that is, spiritual aspects. Recovery from the progressing demise of humanity, and in fact of all life on Earth, can now only come about through widespread recognition of the importance of balancing our materialistic science, which is fundamentally entropic, that is, leading to increasing disorder, with spiritual science that is fundamentally negentropic, moving to higher states of order. The ancient Greeks understood the integral nature of reality and gave equal importance to the science of matter and the science of the arts, that is, knowledge found through feeling rather than thinking, focusing on the heart rather than the intellect. Returning to this balanced view is the only hope of recovery from our hell-bent race to extinction, and is integral with the attainment of higher states of consciousness. From the perspective of higher states of consciousness, the interconnectedness of all life is self-evident, and therefore the benefit to all of sharing both the growing collective knowledge and the means of accessing one's highest potential is clearly in everyone's self-interest. In this way, an end to violence and scarcity of resources will occur naturally, and abundance and a thriving humanity can readily be achieved. The Science Art Research Centre and Professor Pope's many years of research has revealed the fundamental flaw in modern Western culture, and shows that the ancient Greeks considered the understanding of ethics as fundamental to comprehension of reality and underpinned their worldview. Western science, however, whose proponents have become the culture's high priests, cannot by their dogma consider real any phenomena that is not ultimately meaningful to the physical senses. So that which cannot be rationally explained according to traditional physics principles must be ignored because it must be considered unreal. Thus, for them, there is no place for ethics within reality, even though it may seem appropriate to give lip service to it. The Centre's revelations make a vital contribution to the greatly needed renaissance of the 21st century, an awakening that is crucial to the salvation of humanity and the continuation of the evolution of life on planet Earth. And it is only by understanding this greater reality that is not limited by traditional entropic physics, but includes a creative physics, that we can conceive of consciousness as not derived from the physical brain, but rather as the developer and manager of the physical brain and the human mind. And only by such understanding does the attainment of higher states of consciousness, and thereby a truly ethical and sustainable world, become possible. The Centre's latest book, The 21st Century Renaissance, is a science art masterpiece that beautifully presents this transformative revelation, a revelation that is fundamental to the cultural awakening now emerging in the West. My work with the research institute that I've established more than 12 years ago is about creating environments as communities, living, learning communities that provide the environment which is most readily able, where people are most readily able to achieve those higher states of consciousness. So if we can create these working models that people can experience and see the benefits and be open to visitation from others to see what's going on, then this can spread more widely throughout the world. The work that we have here in this beautiful book is something which gives us something solid that connects us with all our history and helps people to understand how we can make this change, this fundamental change in our understanding of reality, and thereby lead to a new world. Thank you.